Roald Dahl's Revolting Rhymes. Cinderella. I guess you think you know this story. You don't. The real one's much more gory. The phony one, the one you know, was cooked up years and years ago, and made to sound all soft and sappy, just to keep the children happy. Mind you, they got the first bit right, the bit where, in the dead of night, the ugly sisters, jewels and all, departed for the palace ball, while darling little Cinderella was locked up in a slimy cellar, where rats who wanted things to eat began to nibble at her feet. She bellowed, "Help!" and "Let me out!" The magic fairy heard her shout. Appearing in a blaze of light, she said, "My dear, are you all right?" "All right," cried Cindy. "Can't you see? I feel as rotten as can be." She beat her fist against the wall and shouted, "Get me to the ball! There's a disco at the palace. The rest have gone, and I am jealous. I want a dress, I want a coach, and earrings and a diamond brooch, and silver slippers, 2 of those, and lovely nylon pantyhose. Done up like that, I'll guarantee the handsome prince will fall for me." The fairy said, "Hang on a tick." She gave her wand a mighty flick, and quickly, in no time at all, Cindy was at the palace ball. It made the ugly sisters wince to see her dancing with the prince. She held him very tightly and pressed herself against his manly chest. The prince himself was turned to pulp. All he could do was gasp and gulp. Then midnight struck. She shouted, "Heck! I've got to run to save my neck." The prince cried, "No! Alas, alack!" He grabbed her dress to hold her back. As Cindy shouted, "Let me go!" the dress was ripped from head to toe. She ran out in her underwear and lost one slipper on the stair. The prince was on it like a dart. He pressed it to his pounding heart. "The girl this slipper fits," he cried, "tomorrow morn shall be my bride. I'll visit every house in town until I've tracked the maiden down." Then rather carelessly, I fear, he placed it on a crate of beer. At once one of the ugly sisters, the one whose face was blotched with blisters, sneaked up and grabbed the dainty shoe and quickly flushed it down the loo. Then in its place she calmly put the slipper from her own left foot. Aha, you see, the plot grows thicker as Cindy's luck starts looking sicker. Next day the prince was charging down to knock on all the doors in town. In every house the tension grew. Who was the owner of the shoe? The shoe was long and very wide. A normal foot got lost inside. Also it smelled a wee bit icky. The owner's feet were hot and sticky. Thousands of eager people came to try it on, but all in vain. Now came the ugly sisters go. One tried it on, the prince screamed, "No!" But she screamed, "Yes, it fits, whoopee! Now you've got to marry me." The prince went white from ear to ear. He muttered, "Let me out of here." "Oh no you don't, you've made a vow. There's no way you can back out now." "Off with her head," the prince roared back. They chopped it off with one big whack. This pleased the prince. He smiled and said, "She's prettier without a head." Then came sister number 2, who yelled, "Now I will try the shoe." "Try this instead," the prince yelled back. He swung his trusty sword and smack! Her head went crashing to the ground. It bounced a bit and rolled around. In the kitchen, peeling spuds, Cinderella heard the thuds of bouncing heads upon the floor, and poked her head around the door. "What's all the racket?" Cindy cried. "Mind your own biz," the prince replied. Poor Cindy's heart was torn to shreds. "My prince," she thought, "he chops off heads. How could I marry anyone who does that sort of thing for fun?" The prince cried, "Who's this dirty mutt? Off with a nut! Off with a nut!" Just then, all in a blaze of light, the magic fairy hove in sight. Her magic wand went swoosh and swish. "Cindy," she cried, "come make a wish. Wish anything and have no doubt that I will make it come about." Cindy answered, "O kind fairy, this time I shall be more wary. No more princes, no more money. I've had my taste of honey. I'm wishing for a decent man. They're hard to find. Do you think you can?" Within a minute, Cinderella was married to a lovely fella, a simple jam maker by trade, who sold good homemade marmalade. The house was filled with smiles and laughter, and they were happy ever after. Jack and the Beanstalk. Jack's mother said, We're stony broke. Go out and find some wealthy bloke who'll buy our cow. Just say she's sound and worth at least £100. But don't you dare to let him know that she's as old as Billy-O. Jack led the old brown cow away and came back later in the day and said, "Oh, Mumsy dear, guess what your clever little boy has got? I really don't know how, a super trade-in for our cow." The mother said, "You little creep, I'll bet you sold her much too cheap." When Jack produced one lousy bean, his startled mother turned green, leaping high up in the air and cried, "I'm absolutely stupefied. You crazy boy, do you really mean you sold our Daisy for a bean?" She snatched the bean and yelled, "You chump!" She flung it in the rubbish dump. Then summoning up all her power, she beat the boy for half an hour, using, and nothing could be meaner, the handle of a vacuum cleaner. At 10 p.m. or thereabout, the little bean began to spout. By morning it had grown so tall, you couldn't see the top at all. Young Jack cried, "Mum, admit it now, it's better than a rotten cow." The mother said, "You lunatic, where are the beans that I can pick?" "There's not one bean as bare as bare." "No, no," cried Jack, "you look up there. Look very high and you'll behold, each single leaf is solid gold." By gollikins, the boy was right, now glistening in the morning light. The mother actually perceives a mass of lovely golden leaves. She yells out loud, "My saintly souls, I'll sell the Minnie by her rolls. Don't stand and gape, you little clot. Get up there and quick and grab the lot." Jack was nimble, Jack was keen, he scrambled up the mighty bean. Up he went without a stop, but just as he was near the top, a ghastly frightening thing occurred. Not far above his head he heard a big deep voice, a rumbling thing that made the very heavens ring. It shouted loud, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman." Jack was frightened, Jack was quick, and down he climbed in half a tick. "Oh, Mum," he gasped, "believe you me, there's something nasty up our tree. I saw him, Mum, my gizzard froze, a giant with a clever nose." "A clever nose?" his mother hissed. "You must be going round the twist. He smelled me out, I swear it, Mum. He said he smelled an Englishman." The mother said, "And well he might. I've told you every single night to take a bath because you smell. But would you do it? Would you, hell? You even made your mother shrink because of your unholy stink." Jack answered, "Well, if you're so clean, why don't you climb the crazy bean?" The mother cried, "By gad, I will. There's life within the old dog still." She hitched her skirts above her knee and disappeared right up his tree. Now would the giant smell his mum? Jack listened for the fee-fo-fum. He gazed aloft and wondered when the dreaded words would come, and then, from somewhere high above the ground, there came a frightful crunching sound. He heard the giant mutter twice, "By gosh, that tasted very nice. Although," and in this grumpy tones, "I wish there weren't so many bones." "By Christopher," Jack cried, "by gum, the giant's eating up my mum. He smelled her out, she's in his belly. I had a hunch that she was smelly." Jack stood there gazing longingly upon the huge and golden tree. He muttered softly, "Golly gosh, I guess I'll have to take a wash, if I'm going to climb this tree without the giant smelling me. In fact, a bath's my only hope." He rushed indoors and grabbed the soap. He scrubbed his body everywhere. He even washed and rinsed his hair. He did his teeth, he blew his nose, and went out smelling like a rose. Once more he climbed the mighty bean. The giant sat there, gross, obscene, muttering through his vicious teeth, while Jack sat tensely just beneath, muttering loud, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, right now I can't smell anyone." Jack waited till the giant slept, then out along the boughs he crept, and gathered so much gold I swear he was an instant millionaire. "A bath," he said, "does seem to pay. I'm going to have one every day." Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. When little Snow White's mother died, the king, her father, up and cried, "Oh, what a nuisance, what a life! Now I must find another wife." It's never easy for a king to find himself that sort of thing. He wrote to every magazine, and said, "I'm looking for a queen." At least 10,000 girls replied, and begged to be the royal bride. The king said with a shifty smile, "I'd like to give each one a trial." However, in the end, he chose a lady called Miss Maclehose, who brought along a curious toy that seemed to give her endless joy. This was a mirror framed in brass, a magic talking looking glass. Ask it something, day or night, it always gets the answer right. For instance, if you were to say, "Oh mirror, what's for lunch today?" the thing would answer in a trice, "Today it's scrambled egg and rice." Now every day, week in, week out, the spoiled and stupid queen would shout, "Oh mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" The mirror answered every time, "Oh madam, you're the queen sublime. You're the only one to charm us. Queen, you are the cat's pyjamas." For 10 whole years the silly queen repeated this absurd routine. Then suddenly, one awful day, she heard the magic mirror say, "From now on, queen, you're number 2. Snow White is prettier than you." The queen went absolutely wild. She yelled, "I'm going to scrag that child. I'll cook her flaming goose. I'll skin her. I'll have her rotten guts for dinner." She called the huntsman to her study. She shouted at him, "Listen, buddy, you drag that filthy girl outside, and see you take her for a ride. Thereafter slit her ribs apart, and bring me back her bleeding heart." The huntsman dragged the lovely child deep, deep into the forest wild. Fearing the worst, poor Snow White spake. She cried, "Oh, please give me a break." The knife was poised, the arm was strong. She cried again, "I've done no wrong." The huntsman's heart began to flutter. It melted like a pound of butter. He murmured, "Okay, beat it, kid." And you can bet your life she did. Later the huntsman made a stop within the local butcher's shop, and there he brought, for safety's sake, a bullock's heart and one nice steak. "Oh Majesty, oh Queen," he cried, "that rotten little girl has died, and just to prove I didn't cheat, I've brought along these bits of meat." The Queen cried out, "Bravissimo! I trust you killed her nice and slow." Then, this is the disgusting part, the Queen sat down and ate the heart. I only hope she cooked it well. Boiled heart can be tough as hell. While all this was going on, oh where had Snow White gone? She found it easy, being pretty, to hitch a ride into the city, and there she'd got a job, unpaid, as general cook and parlour maid, with 7 funny little men, each one not more than 3'10", ex-horse racer jockeys, all of them. These 7 dwarfs, though awfully nice, were guilty of one shocking vice. They squandered all of their resources at the racetrack backing horses. When they hadn't backed a winner, none of them got any dinner. One evening, Snow White said, "Look here, I think I've got a great idea. Just leave it all to me, okay? And no more gambling till I say." That very night, at eventide, young Snow White hitched another ride, and then, when it was very late, she slipped in through the palace gate. The king was in his counting house, counting out all his money. The queen was in the parlour, eating bread and honey. The footman and the servants slept, so no one saw her as she crept on tiptoe through the mighty hall, and grabbed the mirror off the wall. As soon as she had got it home, she told the senior dwarf, or gnome, to ask it what he wished to know. "Go on," she shouted, "have a go." He said, "Oh mirror, please don't joke. Each one of us is stony broke. Which horse will win tomorrow's race, the Ascot Gold Cup's steeplechase?" The mirror whispered sweet and low, "The horse's name is Mistletoe." The dwarfs went absolutely daft. They kissed young Snow White fore and aft, then rushed away and raised some dough with which to back old Mistletoe. They pawned their watches, sold the car, they borrowed money near and far. For much of it they had to thank the manager of Barclays Bank. They went to Ascot, and of course, for once they backed the winning horse. Thereafter, every single day, the mirror made the bookies pay. Each dwarf and Snow White got a share, and each was soon a millionaire, which showed that gambling's not a sin, provided that you always win. Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. This famous wicked little tale should never have been put on sale. It's a mystery to me why loving parents cannot see that this is actually a book about a brazen little crook. Had I the chance, I wouldn't fail to clap young Goldilocks in jail. Now just imagine how you'd feel if you'd cooked a lovely meal. Delicious porridge, steaming hot, fresh coffee in the coffee pot, with maybe toast and marmalade, the table beautifully laid. One place for you, and one for Dad, and another for your little lad. Then Dad cries, "Golly gosh, gee whiz, oh cripes, how hot this porridge is. Let's take a walk along the street until it's cool enough to eat." He adds, "An early morning stroll is good for people on the whole. It makes your appetite improve, it also helps your bowels to move." No proper wife would dare to question such a sensible suggestion. Above all, not at breakfast time, when men are seldom at the prime. No sooner are you down the road than Goldilocks, that little toad, that nosy thieving little louse, comes sneaking in your empty house. She looks around, she quickly notes 3 bowls brimming with porridge oats, and while still standing on her feet, she grabs a spoon and starts to eat. I say again, how would you feel if you had made this lovely meal, and some delinquent little tot broke in and gobbled up the lot? But wait, that's not the worst of it. Now comes the most distressing bit. You are, of course, a house-proud wife, and all your happy married life you have collected lovely things, like gilded cherubs wearing wings, and furniture of Chippendale, bought at some famous auction sale. But your most special valued treasure, that piece that gives you endless pleasure, is one small children's dining chair, Elizabethan, very rare. It is in fact your joy and pride, passed down to you on Grandma's side. But Goldilocks, like many freaks, does not appreciate antiques. She doesn't care, she doesn't mind, and now she plonks her fat behind upon this dainty precious chair, and crunch, it busts beyond repair. A nice girl would at once exclaim, "Oh dear, oh heavens, what a shame!" Not Goldie, she begins to swear. She bellows, "What a lousy chair!" and uses one disgusting word that luckily you've never heard. I dare not write it, even hint it, nobody would ever print it. You'd think by now this little skunk would have the sense to do a bunk, but no, I very much regret she hasn't nearly finished yet. Deciding she would like a rest, she says, "Let's see which bed is best." Upstairs she goes and tries all 3. Here comes the next catastrophe. Most educated people choose to rid themselves of socks and shoes before they clamber into bed, but Goldie didn't give a shred. Her filthy shoes were thick with grime, and mud and mush and slush and slime. Worse still, upon the heel of one, was something that a dog had done. I say once more, what would you think if all this horrid dirt and stink were smeared upon your eiderdown by this revolting little clown? The famous story has no clues to show the girl removed her shoes. What a tale of crime on crime. Let's check it for a second time. Crime 1, the prosecution's case. She breaks and enters someone's place. Crime 2, the prosecutor notes. She steals a bowl of porridge oats. Crime 3, she breaks a precious chair belonging to the baby bear. Crime 4, she smears each spotless sheet with filthy messes from her feet. A judge would say without a blink, 10 years hard labour in the clink. But in the book, as you will see, the little beast gets off scot-free, while tiny children near and far shout, "Good, good, hooray, hurrah." Poor darling Goldilocks, they say, thank goodness that she got away. Myself, I think I'd rather send young Goldie to a sticky end. "Oh, Daddy," cried the baby bear, "my porridge is gone, it isn't fair." "Then go upstairs," the big bear said, "your porridge is upon the bed, but as it's inside Mademoiselle, you'll have to eat her up as well." Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf. As soon as Wolf began to feel that he would like a decent meal, he went and knocked on Grandma's door. When Grandma opened it, she saw the sharp white teeth, the horrid grin, and Wolfie said, "May I come in?" Poor Grandmamma was terrified. "He's going to eat me up," she cried. And she was absolutely right. He ate her up in one big bite. But Grandmama was small and tough, and Wolfie wailed, "That's not enough. I haven't yet begun to feel that I've had a decent meal." He ran around the kitchen yelping, "I've got to have another helping," then added with a frightful leer, "I'm therefore going to wait right here till little Miss Red Riding Hood comes home from walking in the wood." He quickly put on Grandma's clothes. Of course he hadn't eaten those. He dressed himself in coat and hat, and put on shoes, and after that, he even brushed and curled his hair, then sat himself in Grandma's chair. In came the little girl in red. She stopped, she stared, and then she said, "What great big ears you have, Grandma." "All the better to hear you with," the wolf replied. "What great big eyes you have, Grandma," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to see you with," the wolf replied. He sat there watching her and smiled. He thought, "I'm going to eat this child. Compared with her old grandmama, she's going to taste like caviar." Then Little Red Riding Hood said, "But Grandma, what a lovely great big furry coat you have on." "That's wrong," cried Wolf. "Have you forgot to tell me what big teeth I've got?" "Ah, well, no matter what you say, I'm going to eat you anyway." The small girl smiles. One eyelid flickers. She whips a pistol from her knickers. She aims it at the creature's head, and bang, 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 she shoots him dead. A few weeks later in the wood, I came across Miss Riding Hood. But what a change! No cloak of red, no silly hood upon her head. She said, "Hello, and do please note my lovely furry wolf-skin coat." The Three Little Pigs. The animal I really dig, above all others, is the pig. Pigs are noble, pigs are clever, pigs are courteous, however. Now and then, to break this rule, one meets a pig who is a fool. What, for example, would you say if strolling through the woods one day, right there in front of you saw a pig who'd built his house of straw? The wolf who saw it licked his lips and said, "That pig has had his chips. Little pig, let me come in." "No, no, not by the hair on my chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." The little pig began to pray, but Wolfie blew his house away. He shouted, "Bacon, pork, and ham, oh, what a lucky wolf I am." And though he ate the pig quite fast, he carefully kept the tail till last. Wolfie wandered on, a trifle bloated. Surprise, surprise, for soon he noted another little house for pigs, and this one has been built of twigs. Little pig, let me come in." "No, no, not by the hair on my chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." The wolf said, "Okay, here we go." And then he began to blow and blow. The little pig began to squeal. He cried, "Oh, wolf, you've had one meal. Why can't we talk and make a deal?" The wolf replied, "Not on your Nelly," and soon the pig was in his belly. "Two juicy little pigs," Wolf cried, "but still I'm not satisfied. I know full well my tummy's bulging, but oh, how I adore indulging." So creeping quietly as a mouse, the wolf approached another house, a house which also had inside a little pig trying to hide. But this one, piggy number 3, was bright and brainy as can be. No straw for him, no twigs or sticks. This pig had built his house of bricks. "You'll not get me," the piggy cried. "I'll blow you down," the wolf replied. "You'll need," pig said, "a lot of puff, and I don't think you've got enough." Wolf huffed and puffed and blew. The house stayed up as good as new. "If I can't blow it down," Wolf said, "then I'll have to blow it up instead. I'll come back in the dead of night and blow it up with dynamite." Pig cried, "You brute, I might have known." Then picking up the telephone, he dialed as quickly as he could the number of Red Riding Hood. "Hello," she said. "Who's speaking? Who?" "Oh, hello, Piggy. How do you do?" Pig cried, "I need your help, Miss Hood. Oh, help me, please. Do you think you could?" "I'll try, of course," Miss Hood replied. "What's on your mind?" "A wolf," Pig cried. "I know you've dealt with wolves before, and now I've got one at my door." "My darling pig," she said, "my sweet, that's something really up my street. I've just begun to wash my hair, but when it's dry, I'll be right there. A short while later, through the wood, came striding brave Miss Riding Hood. The wolf stood there, his eyes ablaze, and yellowish like mayonnaise. His teeth were sharp, his gums were raw, and spit was dripping from his jaw. Once more the maiden's eyelid flickers, she draws the pistol from her knickers. Once more she hits the vital spot, and kills him with a single shot. Pig peeping through the window stood, and yelled, "Well done, Miss Riding Hood." Ah, Piglet, you must never trust young ladies from the upper crust. For now Miss Riding Hood, one notes, not only has 2 wolfskin coats, but when she goes from place to place, she has a pigskin travelling case. The end.